So welcome everybody to our webinar this evening on the St Lucia Passport Program. My name is Rob Hodson. I'm one of the senior associates at Holborn Assets based in Dubai. Online is my colleague Pablo, who is the general manager for Citizenship and Residency. Say that with your teeth in. Welcome Pablo, and thank you very much for joining us. This evening we're going to be talking for about 25 to 30 minutes on the St Lucia Passport Program. And there'll be a quick update on the issues with Portugal and the EU Golden Visa Program. We have a question and answer session, a section down at the bottom of your screen. So if you have any questions, please add it in there and we'll do our best to answer it at the end of the presentation. But we will follow up with you either tomorrow or later on, see if we've got any further questions and if we can help you. So thank you very much for joining, and over to you, Pablo.
Thank you, Rob. So good evening, everyone. So my name is Pablo Ostric. I head up the Citizenship and Residency by Investment Division. And today I'm just going to quickly present, let's say for 15-20 minutes on St Lucia, their Citizenship by Investment Program. You know, why St Lucia? Why is it the most popular one in 2023 of passports that you can obtain by investment? Okay, so St Lucia is an island in the Caribbean. It's a very famous island for honeymoon and for retirement. In the image, you can see the Twin Peaks, which are very famous, worldwide. And just a quick note on St Lucia. St Lucia is one of two countries in the world that are named after a woman. So you've got Ireland and St Lucia. Okay, so today I'll just quickly introduce who we are at Holborn Assets and Holborn Pass. We'll talk about the different programs that are available in the world, the difference between citizenship and residency by investment. Then we'll focus on the St Lucia program, the benefits, the process, the timeline, the investment options, and the costs. So Holborn Assets, in case you don't know who we are, we're a global wealth management company headquartered in Dubai, in the UK, and in Cyprus. Those are our three main headquarters, but we have offices in 20 different countries, including Portugal, including the US, including, we have 4 in South Africa, 1 in Mauritius, a few more in Africa, 5 in Asia, and then Spain, Portugal, UK, Cyprus in Europe. We do all kinds of, investments and wealth management services, such as funds, insurance products, real estate in the UK. But I head up the division called Holborn Pass, where we focus on investments that give you either a passport or a residency. We started this part of the business around 4 years ago. We've processed over, thousands of applications. And we have a 100% client approval rate, meaning that, if we take on a client, we do the checks beforehand, before we onboard them, and then we know they're going to get approved a few months later. This year, we've already processed 150 applications, so we're on to a record year. And out of which they're mainly St Lucia and Portugal. We help our clients from beginning to end until they obtain the residency and their citizenship. We're a one-stop shop. We can assist with the documentation, with the certifications, translations if needed, just help throughout the process. We've got a team of 10 admin that process all applications, and so far we have very happy clients. Now, in terms of the different programs that we work with, so we work with the main programs that are available in the world. On the left, you've got the passport programs, the citizenship programs, meaning countries where you can buy a passport in exchange for an investment in typically 4 to 6 months in most of the countries. Malta would be the only one in the EU. Typically takes a year and a half, where we can obtain a passport in exchange for a donation of close to 1 million euros. Okay. The other countries typically offer like a donation or a minimum investment option. The minimum investment option is typically real estate based. So you could buy, a share in a hotel, and you need to keep it for 5 years, and then you can resell it. However, it's not terribly popular because you need to add, taxes and fees on top of this number that you see there. So, there's another 100,000 euros or dollars, in fees. So really, if the donation is going to cost you $100,000, why spend $300,000 of your capital and then recover 200 and then you blocked, money for 5 years. And also they're not terribly liquid, these investments, because you can only sell them to another citizenship investor 5 years down the line. So almost always the donation is the quickest route, and the less capital intensive route, and what makes the most sense financially. And typically we got 5 Caribbean countries and Vanuatu, that's in the South Pacific. The 5 Caribbean ones are very, very similar. They're between 145 to 155 countries that you can access visa free. And really, there's they're all small islands close to each other. There's not really much difference between them, unless you want to go to a specific country, and then that's of importance. But most of the time, we recommend St Lucia, as we can currently do it at just over $100,000 compared to all the other ones, which are more expensive. So if you're getting pretty much the same product, why pay 30, 40, 50, 80 grand more? It just doesn't make sense. So that's why St Lucia is the most popular at the moment, and we'll dive into it in just a second. All the Caribbean have access to the UK, to Schengen, to Hong Kong, Singapore, but Vanuatu was recently stripped off their Schengen visa-free access, hence why it was not terribly popular at the moment. Montenegro closed their citizenship program just at the end of last year, and then Turkey is another option that we also assist clients with. $400,000 investment. You can get a Turkish passport in 4 months. You can sell your property after 4 years. So it's 400,000 euros into a property. And it doesn't have access, as you can see here, to Schengen or to the UK. However, you do get a passport and your money back after 3 years. So it also makes financial sense. In terms of the residency programs, here you get a residency first that typically lets you live and work in that particular country, okay? And it can take up to a year to get the residency in most of the countries. And that residency can become a citizenship, okay? If you see this first row here that says time to citizenship, it tells you how long it will take that residency to become a passport, which is typically between 5 to 10 years, okay? What's very attractive about Portugal is that it's the only residency program where you can get the passport, the citizenship, without actually having to live there, right? If you look at this row here where it says physical stay time for citizenship, you can see that you need to spend at least 6 months per year in all the countries for 5 to 10 years to be able to get the passport. You have to become a tax resident, with the exception of Portugal, where you can only visit as little as 5 weeks in that 5-year period, and still be on track to get the passport after 5 years. So that's why Portugal is very exciting, very interesting, very popular. It's also closing at the end of June, so there isn't a lot of time to get into the Portuguese program. The big benefit is, besides the fact that you can get a passport remotely, you put in 280,000 euros as a minimum into a real estate investment, and typically you get that back in year 6 when you get your passports. There's other programs out there that can be of interest for certain people if you want to go live in the US or in Canada and Spain. But today we're focusing on St Lucia, which can be done remotely. Okay, you don't have to visit. It really takes us about a month to prepare the application, submit it to the government. 3 months later, it gets approved, and then in month 5, clients get their citizenships. Now, why is St Lucia so popular? Why do so many people, go for it? Well, a lot of the time you need to think, you need to start off with, what nationality do you hold, right? Which is something that's completely random in most cases, right? You're just born somewhere, and if you're lucky, you got a passport that lets you travel around the world. If you're not so lucky, then you need to get visas to go everywhere. Sometimes you get rejections. It takes a lot of time. So a lot of our clients experience, a lot of trouble when just, trying to be free, just trying to move around the world. And the big benefit really of the Caribbean citizenship is that you can access typically, let's say 145 countries on average, 150 countries visa free. The main ones being UK, Schengen, Hong Kong, Singapore, and another 110 other countries. This helps you to, avoid either paying for visas for one, having to submit loads of documents to then get rejected for no real reason other than, an immigration risk or no financial ties to your home country, or, the visa application wasn't submitted correctly. And that's just, a pain for anyone who just would like to jump on a plane and go somewhere. People have to plan this months in advance. And, it's just, luck of the draw. You're born in one place, and then those are the conditions in which you have to operate. We've seen this year, for example, for Russia, that they can no longer apply for Caribbean passports. They can no longer move money internationally. And that's, for the general population, regardless of, who you support or don't support politically, your mobility, your financial mobility, your the actions that you can take are just dictated by the nationality of the passport that you hold. So holding another passport can really help to ensure you're not maybe hit by sanctions, for example, or by politics or wars, and the fact that you could actually go and live in the Caribbean countries. So it kind of ticks the plan B. If you had to pack up and leave, you can go and live in the Caribbean. It's very good for retirement. I probably wouldn't recommend it for to find a job or to do business necessarily. But it is somewhere to fall back on. If there was another pandemic, the safest place to be is in an island. So I know during the pandemic people were considering that. Finally, the CARICOM is a bit like the EU, where you can move freely. There's the single currency, and you can work in most of those countries. So it has some of those kind of EU bloc benefits. Also, by having a Caribbean passport, besides being completely confidential, no one really knows about it besides you. It's not published anywhere. It's famous for having one of the lowest taxes worldwide. Okay. Now, in terms of St Lucia, in case you haven't heard of St Lucia, as you can see, it's here between in the Caribbean, in the eastern part of the Caribbean, just north of South America, and in Central America. The King of England is the King of St Lucia. There's a interesting story about St Lucia. At one point, it's called the Helen of the Caribbean, because between the UK and France, during the, I think, 1700s, 1800s, it changed hands 14 times. One moment it belonged to France, the next to the UK, and that happened 14 different times. And currently, it's part of the Commonwealth realm, so that gives us a very good relationship with the UK. And citizens of St Lucia can visit the UK up to 6 months at a time, visa-free, and then they can go out and then they can come back and then do that for 6 months and kind of do that indefinitely. The currency there is the Eastern Caribbean dollar, which is the same for the other islands like Antigua, St Kitts, Grenada, Dominica, who all offer a citizenship. And they're all pretty similar. St Lucia has the highest population, 180,000 people roughly live there, and it's a very stable country under parliamentary democracy. There's no army, so other countries like the US or Canada typically grant 10-year multiple entry visas to St Lucia citizens, which are automatically renewed. Now, the St Lucia program started in 2015, so it was the fifth to the Caribbean country that currently operates. Before there's been other ones, and it's still ongoing. It's very successful. This first quarter has been they've had the highest number of applications I think they've ever had. So they're doing very, very well. And this citizenship money represents a huge part of the economy. It's been like 20-30% of the GDP is raised from money from citizenship sales. And they're very dependent on tourism. They're very dependent on these passport programs to bring in money to fund schools, fund healthcare, fund basic infrastructure for St Lucia. It's ranked the 32nd best passport in the world, and the processing is typically taking around 3 months to get approved, 4 months till you get the passport, And usually it takes about 1 month to compile all the documents. So we say around 5 months from beginning to end. Kids can be included under 30, parents over 55. You can include a spouse, and you can also include unmarried siblings under 18. And once you have the passport, this is for life. You can pass it to your kids can pass it to their kids. So it's something that's a generational change. And as I said earlier, we can do it all remotely. Okay, so then this answers the question that one of our viewers just asked. So as we're saying earlier, it's very stable, peaceful, Caribbean, laid back country, part of the British Commonwealth, and also as part of CARICOM, which allows the citizens to live in any of those OECS countries, and the CARICOM ones under very little paperwork. You just need to just say you're going to go and live there, pretty much meet the requirements. Again, for retirement, we touched on that. Maybe remote working in today's day and age, people go to the Caribbean, they go to Bali, to all these beautiful destinations just to spend some time there. And if you can, then why not? There's flights to St Lucia from the US, from London, from Frankfurt that are direct, from Holland. As I said, it's a very famous touristic destination. There's no capital gains tax, stamp duty, no worldwide income tax, pretty much as little taxes as as can be possible in St Lucia. And Iranian nationals, unfortunately, as of 3 weeks ago, can no longer be accepted. Sorry, I'm getting confused. Iranian nationals can be accepted. It's just Russians that can't be accepted. They were being accepted. So Iranians are still okay. They just need more due diligence, and the price goes up by like $30,000. Okay, so typically in the first month of our client signing, first we check that there's no we check on pretty much the same software that the government's used to make sure that the clients, the applicants, are of good character. So we check for war crimes and all kinds of crimes. And once that check is clear, we onboard the client, they pay the retainer, we start working on the application. It typically takes about a month to compile everything, the police clearance certificates, medical certificates. And then at this point, typically, at the beginning, clients pay around 10%. So let's say around $10,000. Then to submit the application, another $20,000 are paid, which typically goes or mainly goes to the government. Government receives the application, receives the money. They start their due diligence, which typically takes around 3 months. Once the government informs us that the clients have been approved, the client sends the remaining part, which is typically 70% of the money. And once the Caribbean correspondent bank accepts the money and the money reaches the government's account, the government then issues the certificate of citizenship, and they deliver the passport to us. We deliver the passport to our clients. Excuse me. And typically there's 3 main routes. The donation route, which is depends on how many family members you put on there, but starts at $100,000 for a single applicant. For the main applicant plus the spouse, it's $140,000. Family for $150,000. The other route is a real estate project, which I mentioned earlier, but on top of that, you need to add all the fees. So it's like another $100,000 in fees. So it's not terribly popular. We usually advise to go just straight for the donation. And then there's another route, which is the government bonds route, which is, again, even more expensive. So we don't usually advise clients to do that unless that's what their their preference in terms of type of investment is. That's pretty much it in terms of, I think we covered everything in terms of about St Lucia, about the program, the benefits, the process, the timeline. It's really not that complicated. We take care of the translations, the certifications. You don't actually have to attest any of the documents at embassies. Our lawyers can do all of the certifications. And that's in a nutshell St Lucia. Maybe I'll just quickly touch on Portugal, because as I mentioned earlier, it is closing in 2 months' time. So St Lucia is fantastic for people who want a fast solution, because 5-6 months' time you can get your Caribbean Commonwealth passport with all the benefits that we've spoken about in the UK and Europe, etc. And in the case of Portugal, what you get is a residency first, which lets you travel free around Schengen for the first 5 years. And then that can be converted to a passport as long as you meet the 2 conditions: you visit for 5 weeks and you have the A2 language level of Portuguese. So Portugal is more of a marathon, while St Lucia is more of a sprint, but they're typically different objectives, right? One is more for people who consider living in Europe in the future, to benefit from the healthcare, the infrastructure, the developed country, etc., etc. And St Lucia is a marathon designed to essentially be free of your government's restrictions, just by holding that country's passport. So with Portugal, it will end in 2 months' time. So we need to submit applications before that deadline, and typically takes about a month to be able to submit the application from beginning to end, because we need to buy the property, we have to open bank accounts, tax numbers, etc. So anyone who is interested in an EU passport, then unless you want to pay 1 million euros in Malta, Portugal is typically the most attractive way, because you'd have to go and live there, buy a property, hold it for 5 years, and then you can get the passport. Once the Portuguese program is closed, there isn't another developed country program where you can get the passport remotely, obviously with the exception of Malta. But again, it comes at a 1 million euro price donation, whilst typically the residency programs, they're all investment, right? You don't really lose much money financially. You get a rental. Sure, there are fees associated with it, but typically you kind of break even in most of the scenarios, or you make some money depending on the property appreciation. So, Rob, I don't know if you've got any other questions. I see.
Yes, we have some more. We've obviously answered the question about family members.
Yeah.
We had the one before the webinar that said what family members can be added, and how do those junior family members, if they have children, obtain passports afterwards?
Yeah, so they would need to, in terms of adding up family members to an application, we typically submit that together, because if you add them later on, it becomes more expensive. So it's financially, makes more financial sense to do it at the beginning. We're looking at, for a family of 4, $130,000, $150,000, really depends on the ages. And, the application, they're all reviewed together, they all get approved together. And in terms of, passing that citizenship on to grandkids, let's say, that can be done. Typically, there's something like a $5,000 fee just to initiate that passport, in terms of processing and government fee.
Perfect. Okay. Clinton's asked, what fees are there for the application? So we've talked about the donation being the $100,000. Do you want to cover this one in terms of depending on how many family members and so forth?
Yeah. So so it's I think we can do around $100,000. Our fee is $9,000. Our fee is $5,000. But the local agent, which we need to submit the application in St Lucia, is $4,000. So all in all, you're looking between $100,000 to $137,000, depending on how many family members.
Okay, all righty. And are there any other sort of administration things apart from the initial checks that need to be performed? Anything that might delay the process?
Not really. Just if clients have lived in many different countries, then we need to get many different police clearance certificates. So that can be slightly annoying. But most of the time we can get away just with the current country of residence and their country of nationality. Those 2 police clearance certificates, that's typically enough. I think Yeah. Clinton's there asked another question about the typical length of stays in Europe. So you can do 3 months out of every 6 months you can stay in Europe, okay, visa free. So, for example, you could do 6 months in the UK, then do three months in Europe, and then 6 months in the UK, 3 months in Europe. If you wanted to, that is possible. Or, just if you need to go to Europe on business or on holiday, you can just get on the plane tomorrow and visit.